to a very special episode of Rare Connection. This is our 50th episode, and I just wanted to start by saying thank you to everyone who's listened to and shared and supported the podcast along the way. Whether you've been with us from the beginning, just or you're just joining the Rare Connection community, I'm so grateful you're here. This show was created to connect rare disease patients, amplify their voices, and help uh, educate both for the public and medical professionals. And today's guest embodies all that and more. I'm honored to welcome Jenny, the writer behind blog Life's a Polyp. Jenny lives with Familial Adenomatous Polyposis, or FAP, and short bowel syndrome, or SVS. Both of which have profoundly shaped her medical journey. Diagnosed with FAP as a child, she underwent a total colectomy at age 9, followed by multiple life-threatening complications and surgeries, including an ileostomy, a reversal into a straight pull through, and more recently, surgery to remove her gallbladder. Her honesty about the trauma, resilience, and complex realities of living with a rare disease and medical PTSD is both moving and deeply important. We'll also be discussing short bowel syndrome, one of the conditions covered in the Medical Nutrution Equity Act, a bill that would change lives for patients who rely on medical nutrition. Jenny's experience offers a real world look at why access to advocacy and matters so much. This is a milestone episode and one that really captures what Rare Connection is all about. Let's dive in. Jenny, let's start with your diagnosis story. You were diagnosed with familial adenomatous polyposis, or FAP, as a child. Can you share that diagnosis, how that diagnosis came about, and what it meant for you and your family at the time?
Absolutely. So we knew my mom had FAP and my grandpa and that it had been in the family. So my parents knew there was a chance that I would also have FAP. And so when I started having oops, sorry, my mom's cat. When I started having a chronic abdominal pain, my parents wanted it to get checked out. And unfortunately, at that time, we were on an HMO insurance plan, so we needed my primary care doctor to send me to a GI doctor. But she refused. She told my parents I was just a whiny child. There was nothing wrong with me. So my parents actually ended up changing insurance plans as soon as they could so they could get me to a GI doctor. And so we changed to a PPO plan so we didn't have to have referrals. And as soon as my pediatric GI doctor heard what was going on and heard our family history, she immediately ordered an upper and lower scope and genetic testing. And that's how we found out that I had FAP too. And so it was my parents expected my experience with FAP to be a lot like my mom's and my grandpa's. It was not. But back then too, I mean, this is like the mid 90s, so not as much was known about it back then. So they didn't have as much information and learned about it as much as we would together growing up and into adulthood.
Well, that's one thing family is good for. If you have something rare, at least you have somebody else to go through it with.
Absolutely. It made such a difference getting to to be able to know, I mean, I had my mom and my grandpa, and I didn't meet anybody with FAP until I was a teenager. And even then, it was only one person, and it was an adult. Now, with the internet, I've gotten to virtually know a lot of people, but having that family to walk through it with me, it made a big difference.
Um, you've been through multiple surgeries, including a total colectomy at age 9. What do you remember about those early experiences, and how did they shape your childhood?
I blocked out a lot from that first year of surgeries. I have flashbacks kind of here and there of things. And I actually ended up, because of it, I blocked out a lot of my childhood. So there's not a lot of memories from the hospital that first year, but then I also don't really remember anything until really high school. So it's affected me a lot. I was using that as a coping mechanism with my PTSD, and it's it really frustrates me because I would like to have those memories back. It bothers me that I haven't been able to unlock those, even though I know that was my brain protecting me. Um, so it's just kind of here and there memories, not usually very good ones.
Mhm. Anything in particular?
I remember. Uh, I think so medically, my first memory is when I had, I think it was for my first surgery. I don't think it was for a scope, but I had uh, forgotten I wasn't supposed to eat. And so I got hungry and I went outside and I ate some potato chips on our porch swing. And then I remembered I'm not supposed to eat. So I went and told my mom, and my mom called the doctor, and they sent a nurse out to do an NG tube placement so that they could suck out things, and I guess also put the magnesium citrate in that way too. I mean, I was drinking it, but that was a pretty traumatic memory that I have. And then the next memory that I have is um, so after this, and this is actually what led to my short bowel syndrome, is I was having a lot of abdominal pain after my colon removal. And my parents rushed me to the ER, and I remember like being on we went over a railroad track, and there was like a train coming, but we went past it, we got through it, and then we're at the hospital, and the ER doctor, they did just a plain old x-ray, which doesn't always show things. Told me there was nothing wrong with me. I was just whining, sent me home, and uh, and then after that, I don't actually remember it, but we went back the next day, and a different doctor did more testing to find that my intestine had wrapped around itself and had cut off my blood supply, killed my J pouch. And so that required more surgery. And what it ultimately led up to me having short bowel syndrome. And there is one memory in between those two, actually. It's when it was 2 weeks before that my incision had gotten infected. And so we went to the ER, and I remember them restraining me, and they gave me a shot of morphine in my leg, which does not work for me at all. It doesn't touch my pain. And they cut my incision open and flushed it out and packed it and sent me home. And I would say those are, well, and then I just have one memory of one nurse who I really liked at the hospital that took really good care of me that year. And that's pretty much it.
So, for those who aren't familiar, can you explain what a J pouch is?
Yes, so it's kind of one of the most or more common, I should say, reversals after someone has an ostomy or they have their colon removed, and so they use the small intestine and they uh, fold it so it kind of actually looks like a J. There's even ones that they kind of shape it, they fold it in so it looks like a W or an S. So the J pouch was supposed to be my reversal of my ostomy, and it would be like the internal reservoir to take the place of my rectum. Uh, And so it killed that part of the small intestine that they put that in place to heal up over the summer, and then they would later go back in and do a two-step surgery. Nowadays, sometimes they do it as a one-step surgery, though.
I'll have to look it up, but I think there's a video I found a while back about a woman who does covers for ostomy bags.
Yes. They have some really cute ones too that people do. It's so much better than the ones they'll send just like a plain white or tan, maybe even a black one that you can get from the suppliers, but those are very boring.
Yeah. For listeners who may be familiar with FAP, who may not be familiar with FAP, how would you describe it? What does it mean to live a with a hereditary cancer?
So it's a rare one too. So that the main thing that it will do is it will cause colon cancer at some point. But those polyps, they also can develop anywhere else in the body. And so there's also high risk of other cancers. Uh, and so it's requiring a lot of monitoring. There's going to presently, right? We do have some medicines that help slow the growth of the polyps and reduce the polyp burden, but presently the treatment's going to be that you have to have your colon removed, and you may end up requiring other organs removed. And because it's a rare disease, um, even though it's hereditary, there's a lot of doctors that don't know about it. It's a very small blurb in their training. And so I've heard of people that even though it's a hereditary condition, they aren't able to get genetic testing for their kids or for themselves even though they have a direct, parent that has it too. And so it can be very challenging living with it, not only physically and emotionally, but even just dealing with the medical system about it.
So you've also had complications with FAP, including gallstones and other gastrointestinal issues. How do you manage the long-term effects of the condition now?
I've been very fortunate. I've had periods where it was I mean, it was life-threatening. It was and then I would end up stabilizing. It would take years. But one of the two biggest things I would say is that I'm a very strong advocate with my doctors. I have a very good team of doctors that listen to me and they know to trust me about my body. And so they don't just dismiss me, thankfully. But being educated about the research and what's going on and not being afraid to speak up for it when I'm not getting the care has made a big difference. Staying on top of monitoring, even when it may not necessarily be FAP related directly. There's a lot of things that happen without a colon. And so I've I had to advocate for I need additional testing. I'm having the symptom going on. It's not getting better, or I'm worried about what this can cause later on if it becomes an issue. But then also having the mental health support is a big part in it also. And so I have a therapist that I go to. We've been doing weekly sessions for I don't know at least 3 years now. I've been in counseling periodically throughout my life to help me cope with it, but this time I'm not stopping when I'm not depressed. I'm staying in it.
So since FAP is hereditary, did your diagnosis lead to genetic testing or awareness in your family?
Yes,
How
I'm
uh,
sorry. Go ahead.
how has that impacted your loved ones?
So I did undergo genetic testing when my doctor learned of the family history of it. And then I guess because when I underwent the genetic testing, that was because my mom was diagnosed with it as a, t- a kid also, but they didn't have genetic testing for it back then. So I believe what happened is that my mom's two sisters, they underwent colonoscopies when I was diagnosed. I don't know for sure if they did genetic testing too, but either way, however they did their testing of whatever, they were determined that they didn't have it. And so I'm, at least in this family line, the only one left.
So you develop short bowel syndrome as a result of surgical complications. What does SBS look like in your day-to-day life?
That's a lot better now than what it was. It really had gotten worse after I had my ostomy reversal. I was just having to take iron and I think B12 shots before that. And then when I had my ostomy reversed, it I couldn't keep anything in me. I had a stricture from adhesions around my intestine too. And so between the short bowel and that stricture, it created an ulcer that has never healed. It created a hole in my intestine that we had to work on. And my electrolytes were so out of balance because I would either vomit everything up or I would finally get it passed like liters at a time. And so my electrolytes were extremely low. And I was on taking Lamodal, which is an oral pill for diarrhea, and Sandostatin, which is a sub-Q under the skin shot. And neither of those really were working. So I ended up on TPN for about 6 months. Sorry, mom's cat is crying. Um, while they were working on healing up the ulcer, that the hole that it had created. And it took about 5 years after my ostomy reversal for my body to stabilize. So now I fast forward, over 20 years, and I rarely have to take Lamodal. Um, I do have to take a lot of supplements that are either over the counter or prescription to maintain my lab values. I have to get iron infusions because of it. Um, but it's much more under control now than what it was, fortunately.
How critical is the medical nutrition is medical nutrition to your health now?
Oh,
And
it's
what happens if you can't access what you need?
oh my gosh. So I learned very quickly as an adult, like in my 30s, how important my iron is for me because now if my hemoglobin gets into the mid low nines, I can barely keep my eyes open after 3 p.m. When I was in college, my hemoglobin got down to 4 and I was just taking naps. I still functioned. I did all these different things. And now it's so much harder now, which I know with age that also complicates things. But if I don't get the medical nutrition I need now, I can barely function.
Have you had to deal with insurance denials or delays for nutrition related treatments and supplements?
So the biggest when I was on my own insurance that I experienced was my first job that gave me insurance, and it was not the best plan. But they would not cover my Lamodal brand name. And at that time, so I had gone through periods where I could be on the generic, the Lonox, but sometimes the manufacturers they change like one ingredient and it can be an active ingredient too. So you wouldn't think it matters, but it may not respond well for what you're needing. And so at that time, there was something that had must have been changed in the generic form. And so I required brand name, Lamodal, to help control my short bowel syndrome. And the insurance wouldn't cover it. They were like, no, you can only do generic. And I was really fortunate because I mean, I went through the whole process, every single level of appeal that they gave me. And I fortunately had a good supply of brand name, but eventually I had to give up and I tried the generic and it worked for me again, fortunately, because otherwise it was going to be, I would have had to pay out of pocket the full amount for brand name to get it. But then I changed jobs and got a different insurance that was better. And so I didn't have to go through that again. And I've been lucky with my current employer that I haven't had any denials, and my doctors have been pretty quick on the authorization. I'm so sorry for that noise.
So, see, SBS is actually one of the conditions covered under the Medical Nutrition Equity Act, if it ever passes. We've been fighting for this for about 20 years now. But FAP and abdominal migraines, which you also suffer from, are not. How do you feel about the gap in coverage?
And I think, it's a shame because there shouldn't be gaps in coverage for anybody, and it shouldn't be a fight to be able to get the care that we need. We also shouldn't have to really have what the medical care that we get be influenced by insurance. Insurance shouldn't get to have a say in that, especially when it's not doctors in the same field even making those decisions. I learned recently, I didn't realize this, that when you have a peer-to-peer review, it's not always with a doctor and it's not always with the same doctor field, specialty that they're in. They can request that, but that should be an automatic thing. It shouldn't even be an option that's something you have to ask for to be able to when you do need a peer-to-peer to talk to your own same specialty. It's just mind-boggling.
So, yeah, for those not familiar with the Medical Nutrition Equity Act, you can go to nutritionequity.org is the website. But it would help it would mandate that health insurance covers the cost of medical foods, formula, and vitamins nationwide. Currently, it varies from state to state. Uh, what's covered and what's not, and it can vary from some states have an allowance, some don't cover it all, some have only cover children, leaving adults to fend for themselves because these are known as childhood condition. For the most part, um, they are also and sometimes they only cover certain conditions also. So it really varies depending on which state you're in. Which is another thing that really shouldn't be. Um, so, if you had a chance to directly impact to speak directly to lawmakers, especially those who haven't yet supported the bill, what would you say about the importance of equitable access to medical nutrition?
I mean, this isn't anything to sneeze at. It's literally life-saving. It's putting people in danger if they're not able to get the care they need, and that includes medical nutrition. There's, it's not just TPN or supplements or medications that people need so that they get the medical care that they're needing, the nutrition that they're needing to be able to maintain life. So it's very important. I'd want to remind them that it's literally life-saving.
I've had two strokes because of my condition. I also have another condition called homocystinuria that is on this too. Um, how has it felt to navigate the system, knowing that your needs change depending on which diagnosis is recognized for coverage?
It's it's scary at times, especially when dealing with new doctors. That absolutely gets terrifying for me. Um, and especially if they don't know, they don't have very much knowledge about the different diagnoses. It can be very difficult to get the right care or even just the acknowledgement of something because it's Yes, it's very complex, but at the same time, though, when someone doesn't have the knowledge, they don't know the resources as the providers on what they need to do to be able to provide care and treatment. It gets pretty scary at times trying to navigate it all, especially if you don't have doctors that trust you as a patient.
You openly shared your experiences on your blog, Eliza Polyp. What inspired you to start writing, and what kinds of connections have you come from that?
So it was on Facebook and I had joined a community. It wasn't a group, it was just a kind of a community page for FAP. And they asked for someone to start writing a blog about FAP. And I didn't volunteer for that, but they ended up reaching out to me because I was an active contributor to the community. And I agreed to it, which was not very much like me at the time because I was very insecure, especially about my medical conditions and people knowing about them. So I started it anonymously, and I remember then this lady from Michael's uh, mission, which is for colon cancer, she tracked me down. She had it took her a lot of work to be able to find who I was on Facebook because I posted everything anonymously. And she reached out to me and she really encouraged me and empowered me to reveal myself so I could reach a broader audience. And from that, so much has grown. Not only have I made like lifelong friends, I a lot of good support, online friends in the FAP community, some of them who have short bowel too. But then I started a research fund for FAP with NORD. I wrote a children's book about FAP that was published in 2022, and just trying to do all kinds of different ways to meet people and get the awareness out there and empower others for their navigation of it. It led to things like what is now called Health Union. I have worked with them closely as well, bringing awareness to rare disease and FAP and short bowel syndrome specifically. So it's been quite the journey.
I'm not familiar with Health Union.
It used to be called We Go Health, and then I guess We Go Health became acquired by Health Union, and so one of they're kind of like an umbrella, and they have Social Health Network is a big branch of theirs.
So can you tell us more about that? Or
So they do. So Health Union overall has done. They kind of revamped a lot of things. We Go Health was doing a lot of awareness. They would do partnerships with community members. So for different diseases, different chronic illnesses. And then with Health Union, they have made individual sites, even like not just on Facebook, but their own sites. And so for rare disease, theirs is raredisease.net. And so I was working with them doing some moderation, but mainly I was an article contributor. So there's several different people that have written articles about different rare diseases and the experiences with them. They have a very nice community support program. They have different educational resources on their website also. And so Health Union has created different spaces like that for different things, like for migraine, and I think there's one for psoriasis. There's one for an eye disease. There's several different ones, and so they're just really focused on the patient experience and making sure that the patient experience is included in things that is not just um, doctors or experts in the fields, things like that, that the patients are included.
so, you survived life-threatening complications of medical trauma. What keeps you going? And And what message do you want to want other patients in similar situations to hear?
That question of what keeps me going, I don't think that I've ever thought about that. Um, but I want people to know they're not alone. I don't want them to go through the same things I did, physically and mentally. I want people to know how to navigate rare disease, and I want doctors to take us seriously. Um, and, there's also a big part of it is that when doctors don't know and they don't take us serious, we have to have the ability to advocate for the care that we need because there's a lot of them, a lot of these rare diseases, especially FAP and short bowel syndrome even, it can be very life-threatening if they're not taken care of properly. Um, so knowledge is essential and having the skills to be able to advocate for that is very needed because doctors don't always know. So I guess I would say those would be my two messages for people to take away. You're not alone in this, and there's a lot of resources, and I try to add to those to empower patients to be able to navigate it, especially when they don't have doctors on their sides.
That is a message that is thankfully echoed over and over again throughout this podcast. It's a lot of people say that, and it's true.
Mhm.
Um, there are thousands of different rare diseases and also rare disease patients, over 300 million rare disease patients. So it's bigger than you think. Um, let's see if the um, Medical Nutrition Equity Act were passed tomorrow, what would that mean for you, and what still needs to change?
I think I'm fortunate now that it wouldn't, I can't think of the word I want, but when I was going through uh, after my ostomy reversal, I really, really needed things, that equity, that assist, be able to get the things that I needed because I was on a lot more back then. I'm fortunate now that I've been able to cut back on a lot of things. And so um, I don't have the need for as much access as I needed back then. But it would absolutely, even now, be very would help save for a lot of the expenses that it costs to be able to try to maintain our health and our nutritional needs. It would help with reducing that burden for me, and I know for so many others who have a higher burden than I'm having right now. It would be very beneficial for so many people, and I think it would help make people's nutrition, their health, their labs that have much more stability and have better health from it because they wouldn't be fighting as much or have lack of resources to be able to get the things they're needing to try to maintain nutritionally.
So one of the more confusing parts about it is that medical foods are actually built under durable medical equipment. It's um, how are you getting along? I mean, does your state cover any part of it, or
They don't cover anything for me. I remember when I was having to take, one of the things I had to take after my ostomy reversal a lot was modulin, and we tried to get it covered, and they wouldn't cover it back then. I'm not sure if they would now. It's not something that I require to take anymore, and I don't voluntarily take it either. I did not like it when I had to take it. Um, but I know I haven't been able to have, other than prescription medicines covered. I can get, some things reimbursed through my FSA, through my insurance, my flexible spending account, but that's not something that everybody has access to.
Yeah.
Um, and I know I'm trying to think of others who I know are on some different programs, but other than they may get like a food box, I'm not aware of others in my state getting things like that covered either through different programs that we do have.
Mhm.
And a food box usually isn't going to be enough, and it's not usually the nutritional values that someone like with short bowel syndrome is needing either.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our guest, Jenny, for sharing her powerful story and giving us an inside look at life with both familial adenomatous polyposis and short bowel syndrome. Your honesty and strength and advocacy are a true gift to the rare disease community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rare Chef, and the podcast and my podcast, Rare Connection, on your favorite podcast platform. We also have a Rare Connection Facebook group where you can connect with other listeners, ask questions, and share your own story. And don't forget to follow Rare Connection on Facebook, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn to stay up to date on upcoming guests, advocacy efforts, and resources. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. If you're watching the video, you can comment below. If you're listening to the audio version, you can click on the send me a text link in the show notes and share your feedback. I truly read every message. You'll also find a support the show link in the show notes. Every contribution helps keep the podcast going and growing. Today, thank you for being part of this mission. And if you are passionate about raising awareness for rare diseases and invisible disabilities, check out the t-shirt I designed. Ships worldwide for the cost of just $24.99 plus shipping, and helps spark important conversations wherever you go. The link is also in the show notes. Lastly, if you are someone you know struggling emotionally or needs support, you are not alone. You can text 988 or call 1-800-273-TALK or 8255 in the US and for free confidential 24/7 support. All the links mentioned today for advocacy from advocacy to support to merch can be found in the episode show notes. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And since this is National Star Wars Day, I just want to say, may the 4th be with you.